It's almost like we're in a abusive relationship with ourselves. The ego engaged the egocentricity to keep it safe. And then now the egocentricity has imprisoned it. It's taken control. And it's okay. I've got you. I'm in control. Don't worry about this. And we're taking drugs and we're taking alcohol and we're getting beauty cosmetic and we're doing all this stuff trying to penetrate it. And it's all counterfeit.
Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love and joy. And from lovely Australia, here with me, Chad Taylor. Hello and welcome, Chad.
Hey, Philip, how you going?
All right, we had a rough start, but that's podcasting 101. I would like first to say hello to our viewers. Thank you so much for being with us and coming back to us. It's your place of discovery. And as I've been more than 30 years into spirituality and still every conversation, something new to learn, something exciting. And today we are lucky to learn from Chad's experience. And I'll promise you by the end of the conversation, never mind if this is your first time looking into spirituality or if you're a long time practitioner, there's always something new we can learn. And with this, Chad, it'd be lovely if you make a small introduction so we get to know who you are.
So I'm Chad Taylor. I live on the east coast of New South Wales in Australia. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, and I'm now a clinical psychotherapist and author, and I've got a passion for all things spiritual and all things evolution and consciousness acquisition, I would say.
Wow, that's short and compressed, and I know that's who you are. I know that you do your own podcast. You invited me. Thank you so much. And also thank you for sending me a copy of your book. I was browsing through and I see things always tense and intensive with you. So I guess we'll see how the 50 minutes go, but never mind, we will make it work. So thank you for all of it. And yes, your podcast is 30 minutes short and sweet. So everyone who likes short format and to have no fluff and come straight to the point, I guess you're the man to listen to. So this is already sweating becoming your guest. Don't know how I'm going to deal with this kind of a pressure.
All right. There's always, if we can say something condensed, it means we know it. The more condensed we can explain something, I think the better we probably know it.
Okay, to the 2 seconds to explain my audience that I know nothing. I need 15 minutes for one thought. Thank you so much. And that's the end of my podcast. Last episode. Is it true? Do you really think that, by the way? You think it's true that if we know something, we can make it so compressed and simplified? And do you really think so?
I do. I do think the more we know something, the easier and more simplified we should be able to convey it to somebody else. Because I think it, especially when we're talking spirituality, what do they say? Those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. So I think sometimes the least we say, and I love guys like Anthony DeMello and Eckhart Tolle and guys like that really, I think, have taken a pretty complex or very complex concept and made their very, I suppose, still dense, but very easily understandable. And that's what I've tried to attempt with my book.
For sure. May I reflect on that? I think it's true and it's not true at the same time when it comes to spirituality. I'm absolute. The real big truth, they can never be spoken. You have to experience them. So that's the only way you know. I'm absolutely with you. But then on the other hand, if you try then to make words out of it, it really comes some weird, because it's so hard to describe a feeling or an experience in a way that you know that this is something that's unusual. So you try to make it understand to people that haven't had it. And that usually ends up being somewhere between a fortune cookie and Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know. It's just very difficult. So I think you're right. And sometimes you need a lot of words if you want to say something that you actually can't say.
Yeah, and I mean, the explanation I use with clients is something like eating a mango or eating a banana. I could give them a conversation around eating a banana for 10 years. They could come and see me for 4 hours a week, and I could give them all these handouts and I could give them so many words and lectures on bananas and ladyfinger bananas and organic bananas and trying to explain to them what it tastes like. And if they're a bit green, if they're a bit green or a bit unripe, they're a bit bitter. And if they're gone too far, they're brown and they're soft. I could explain that to them for a whole lifetime, and they still would never really get an understanding of what a banana tastes like. Or if I just handed them a banana, and that's, I guess, where I'm trying to go with what I say. If I just handed them a banana and they peeled it and they bit into it, we can cut out 10 years of talking about bananas. And I suppose that's what I've tried to do in my book, and how I try and work with others is let's have the experience of spirituality.
That's exactly the point, isn't it? But it's interesting, it's coming from you as a therapist. I'm getting giddy here because, but you know that so many people, you can give them the banana, but they're unable to eat it. So that's exactly what the point. We're just right in the middle of your book by accident somehow, because isn't that the problem, that you can give a banana to 1 million people, but they just can't eat the banana? And they maybe need, and that's maybe my first question, they maybe need 10 years of listening to you talking about bananas until they're ready, or at least coming closer to the possibility of eating the banana.
But yeah, exactly that. Or they're starving and they don't think they need the banana. And then at the right time, the banana is passed to them when they're starving, and that's all they've got. And I think most people that end up living a spiritual way of life, from my experience and from my own life, is each time I've gone deeper into my spiritual practice, it's been through collapse. It's been through collapse of the egocentricity, or it's been through collapse of my whole world around me. And it's the thing that I've really had to rely upon is that higher power, or that collective consciousness, or God, whatever people want to call it. I don't know what people call it on your show. There's thousands and millions of words for all topics, right? But that energetic force that orchestrates everything behind the scenes. I think the desperate get flexible. So even if I don't like bananas, if I'm starving and I'm malnourished, and it's the only option, then I'll probably take a banana off you, even if I don't think I need it.
And we're so deep into your book, it's crazy, and everybody and the YouTube algorithm will think this is a forest show talking about vegetables the whole time.
They might think we're monkeys.
Yeah, I think we have overstretched the metaphor, but actually we are so deep into it because that's what it is. Some people are able to accept it or go into it and hands-on and need the experience. Some people are in like some kind of holding position or preparational position and need the time to be ready to receive it. So this is all the games around it and the different solutions. So it's interesting because when you simplify spirituality, when you take off all the labels and all the different framing and just come to the simple structure, it sometimes is horrifying how simple and straightforward the whole process is. But then we would not have a multi-billion-dollar industry around spirituality if we just simplified. So that's also make a lot of people unemployed. All right, before we get too much into bananas and other fruits and mangoes and whatnot, can you a bit tell us about the book so we do this the proper way before we jump into the book?
Yeah, and the book had many names along a short period of writing, and it's ended up being called It's You, Oh Fuck, It's Me. And the basis of the book really was about the projection that I see all the time in my therapy practice, the projection that majority of people that come in are in a relationship, or they're struggling with a boss or a sibling or a mother or a father or an ex-partner or a child, or there's generally majority of problems that people come to therapy for are generally an interpersonal relationship of some sort. And most of the time they're I suppose they're really intimate interpersonal relationship, and just the level of projection and unconsciousness, I guess, that I've seen over my life, my own relationships and partners and myself and people around me. And now in my practice, I really wanted something that incorporated that if we all can start to take some sort of accountability and responsibility, and sometimes that could be that, and I write in the back of the book because I had a few emails and I had a few letters about sometimes it's not me. Sometimes the other person's abusive, and sometimes and I completely get that, but we still do have a little bit of autonomy in that. Why do we keep putting ourselves, why are we onto the fourth partner? that's narcissistic. And then I want to make a YouTube channel out of teaching you how to deal with narcissistic partners. I'd probably be better off learning why I keep choosing them. So I guess the basis of the book was really around personal responsibility. And I think growing in consciousness is all we can do.
Whoa. We are in dangerous territory all the way. If we talk another 2 minutes, the police will be knocking at our doors. First of all, you're going 100% against zeitgeist. Again, there is a billion-dollar industry about feeding people's trauma. That's the business right now of all the businesses, the mother of all money, to explain people that they're not guilty for anything that ever happened in their life. And everyone else, is it the father, the husband, the boss, whoever on earth is the one who has been doing it to this innocent flower floating on the river and has basically no any kind of connection with their own destiny. They're just flowing in the water wherever the water goes, and if the water is mean, then they suffer, and if the water is warm and cozy, they
still suffer.
And now everybody will say, look at him, he's making fun about trauma, he's making fun about people being abused or whatever. Look at him, how mean he is. I do not make ever fun about real suffering and real trauma and people who've been going through real things. And I take this enormously serious, but fun fact, I've met a lot of people who had real experiences, even on the show and in private, and they need to deal with it because there's no other way. It's not a zeitgeist kind of a bullshit. They need to deal with this. And most of them find some odd way of making peace with it, one way or the other. Otherwise, it just can't go on. While the others who had these fake traumas, they can nourish them forever. Is that what you also have experienced?
Yeah, and that's where my book comes from. I was probably one of the biggest victims you'd ever meet. I got programmed into being a victim. My story was that I grew up in a pretty chaotic home with, a lot of alcohol and more alcohol than drug addiction, not much drug addiction, but more alcoholism and a lot of emotional violence and turmoil. And I guess I almost got programmed. And this is what I talk about in my book. I'm pretty open with all this kind of stuff, that the reason this book has come is because I've worked through that. I think my story, and I didn't piece this together until I was almost 40, about what was really going on for me, that I'd almost taken on this being a victim and I'd almost become my personality. If me and you met, I'd tell you a story. I'd probably pretty quickly tell you a story about almost poor Chad, and almost get you to feel sorry for me, which was my way of connecting with people. And I had no idea I was doing it. And when I chased it back through therapy and through reading books and meditating and journaling and understanding, my mum would retreat over to her family's house with us kids, with me and my sister, when things got chaotic in the home, and her two sisters. So my aunties were a lot younger than my mum, and they would almost give me treats and give me lollies and, we wish mum would just leave him and all this kind of crazy stuff. But I think unconsciously my programming was, the worse your story is, the worse you can say your father was to you, the more I got ice creams and trips to the park, and I almost got rewarded. And I can see what they were doing. It wasn't their fault either. They were trying to make me forget about the trauma and make me forget about things and feed me full of junk and lollies and cheer me up with a bit of dopamine. But I think what it did was it actually created me just to learn to be a victim. And I went through my life like that. And I think I got in relationship where I remember I'm in an amazing relationship now with my partner, Sophie. We're engaged and we both work on ourselves pretty well. But my previous relationship before this, we were both pretty unhealed. And she's a really good woman. She's the mother of my daughter. But I can remember vividly, we've had these arguments and she'd be like, "You're just a fucking victim." And I'd be like, "You're the fucking victim." It was almost like we'd come up against each other where the victim was almost out victiming him. Her love language was being a victim and she got love that way. And my love language has been a victim. And then when we come up against each other, it was 2 windows or 2 mirrors. And yeah, it was just amazing for that to happen. So that was when I really embarked on this journey after that relationship ended. Because I think if somebody says something about me, it could be true or it could not be true. But if it's happening multiple times, if I'm onto my 4th relationship with a narcissist, they might be narcissistic, but there's got to be some sort of personal responsibility about the choices I make. And just quickly on that, you mentioned the book. On the back of the book, this is how it's written. This book isn't here to make you feel good. It's about realizing it's not your partner, your past, or the world. It's you. If you're done blaming, bullshitting, and you're ready to take responsibility, read it. If not, don't. Like, it's a pretty simple message on the back of the book there. Like, it's not for everybody, this book. For me, this is waking up.
Right. The problem is that this is such a super dangerous concept, right? If you nourish people and keep pushing it, that they are not responsible for things that happen to them, it's those patterns, and we love those patterns, and those patterns are in a way protecting us. The other way, they're also very dangerous. And it seems to me that the society has lost the proper approach to these patterns. And I think the conspiracy theory is basically economically fueled, because if you can nourish these patterns, you just can make really a lots of money, from the cosmetic industry down to therapy sessions. It's just all the money there is right now by keeping people in those pattern loops. But if your patterns could speak, how would they defend themselves? Can you maybe, what would your answer to such a question? What would the patterns say? Are we all helpful? Or
I would say, and I write about this a lot in my book with diagrams, like when we're born. And my example of spirituality is, for me, the head and the heart are connected. So the head and the heart are connected, the feeling and the thinking are connected, but also on top of that, then that's connected to everything else. So when we're born, we are connected. Like a baby, a child up until about 3, and this comes out of Jungian analysis and Robert Johnson's work and Christianity and Hinduism. Like, this is not, I didn't create any of this, and I don't. What I'm trying to do is, like I said at the start with the bananas, I'm trying to simplify, hopefully, these concepts. So when we're born, our thinking and our feeling are connected. This is my interpretation, by the way. They are connected. And up until about the age of 3, we don't really know anything outside of the present moment. The little child doesn't worry, oh, it's going to be winter soon, Mum. It's going to get really cold in the middle of summer while it's swimming at the beach. It's just, it's little child is in the moment, and they're connected to everything and everyone. And for me, that is a spiritual experience. Simply, when I'm connected to everything and everyone around me, I'm having a spiritual experience. And then and I'll try and speed this up because I know you've only got 50 minutes. There's an inbuilt mechanism in the feeling or the body. We call the feeling function in the body. There's an inbuilt mechanisms in that to protect us. There's these automatic things that pump our heart around, pump our blood. If I get sick or you get sick, our body will put us into a fever. It will overheat us, sweat it out. If I eat poison food, the body automatically knows to turn it into diarrhea and get it out. If I cut my arm, it'll coagulate the blood, right? So there's inbuilt protective mechanisms in the body and in the feeling. But what we don't realize is there's inbuilt protective mechanisms in the psyche as well. In our psyche, there's a thing called inbuilt in us called the egocentricity. And what it does is it's there deserved to protect us, right? It's designed to protect us. Like you said, what would they say? As my father is even in the most untraumatic home, my father is busy working and he comes home and I've drawn him a picture and he's too busy to look at it. The ego, or that little 4-year-old me, knows, wow, you've just been rejected, but you're too little to understand that. So it almost puts a little invisible barrier up, a little wall. And then I go to school and then the teacher sends me out of the classroom and says, you're never going to account to anything, you little shit. They probably don't say that now, it's politically incorrect, and they send me out. And then that again puts it up. And in my book, I draw these diagrams. So the thinking and the feeling become disconnected by the egocentricity, which is the protector. And then I think for the rest of our lives, we see the world, I'm just trying to look in this book here, we see the world from that egocentric or from that egotistical bit, which is wall. When somebody says, oh, Philip's got his walled up, I believe they're talking about the egocentricity that protects the true self. And then that's how we experience the world. And this is again why I think alcohol and drugs were always around, because you probably already know this, but Carl Jung talks a lot about it. In Latin, the word for alcohol originally was spirit. So when they started fermenting alcohol in its purest form, it was called a spirit because it gave people a counterfeit spiritual experience. Or peyote did the same, or ayahuasca did the same, and all sorts of things did the same. And in my book, I draw these diagrams that show that when we drink, it almost knocks a little hole out of this egocentricity, and those two things get the thinking and the feeling get to become reconnected again. And even that religion, if we look again, Latin term for religion is religare, and if we really look at those words, it means reconnection. So the term religion was always really a term for being able to have a reconnecting experience. In other words, a spiritual experience. But because now we've had pedophile priests and all the craziness in the world, right? Most of us have shunned away. As soon as we hear the word God, we think of control, we think of priest, we think of a man on a cloud. And I'm off on a bit of a tangent here. For me, it's every religious and spiritual teaching has been telling us, the Buddha said, die before you die. They talked about samsara and nirvana, the first noble truth out of the Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth of Buddhism virtually says life is dukkha, which translates to suffering. People suffering or unsatisfactoriness really is the true translation. So life is unsatisfactory. And then it goes on in the second noble truth to say, where is life unsatisfactory, or where do we suffer? In our thinking. So again, I'm often going here because I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. And so for me, back to what you said, what would they say? They'd say, my protector and defender would say, poor me, don't you know what happened to me? Poor me. It would say all these things that happened because the real me is underneath that. It's okay in there. But this wall that's been built, this egocentric barrier that's built, it's the one that's communicating to you most of the time. If I don't do any work on it, if I don't, for me, meditate, pray, not to a Christian God, but just pray, connect in with the universe. If I don't do these things, that for me is almost trying to knock that egocentricity away a bit. The problem is, as soon as I'm putting a hole in it, it's rebuilding itself because it believes. It's almost like, I said to someone the other day, it's almost like we're in a abusive relationship with ourselves. The ego engaged the egocentricity to keep it safe. And then now the egocentricity has imprisoned it. It's taken control. And it's okay. I've got you. I'm in control. Don't worry about this. And we're taking drugs and we're taking alcohol and we're getting beauty cosmetic and we're doing all this stuff trying to penetrate it. And it's all counterfeit. The work Absolutely. Of AA and Carl Jung.
For me, it's the biggest problem of all of it. I always call it feeding the dragon. That's what I let you on the show. And it's something that bothers me so much that so many people are stuck in this program. They basically keep back feeding loops and they don't realize it and they don't know that they don't feel good. So they do more and more because they can see that they must do more. But it's always negative feedback loops because it's extremely hard to break that barrier. And as you've said, there are ways to a little bit break the barrier in a, again, negative way, like alcohol, like drugs, or maybe boxing, or bar fight, or
sex, like an
that's
orgasm.
Great. No, that's perfect. Leave it there. All the others, we can blame all the others. This one, just don't touch it. Of course, no. So this is such an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? For me, it's fascinating. And the new spiritual solution to all of it is that they always say we have to reconnect with the heart, make heart chantras, heart meditation, heart sound bath. And the heart is the one that could unlock it and things like that. But I'm a bit skeptical of all of it. What is your finding? What have you found? Or what was the moment when you said, oh, it's me, as you call your book? So where have you basically broken the pattern?
I think for me, it was in the company of another person. We talked about this. In the company of another person, that direct transmission that we don't talk about enough. There's a lot of charlatans out there at the moment that'll, if you pay them enough, you'll become enlightened. If your wallet's big enough, you could become enlightened. And this man was the opposite, where he had something I wanted and I could feel it. I could feel it in him. And we sat down, and he was actually a therapist, but there was something about him which he took me on as a mentor. And we shared these experiences. And I think me and you were sharing one now where it was just nothing else mattered. It didn't matter about, I'm not trying to outdo you right now and be smarter than you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I want to be on here and soak up all your wisdom. And I get tingles as I say that, right? I can feel it in me. These things can transmit. It's that tingly feeling that we get, goosebumps, things like that, where I know when these things are happening and I can feel the tingle almost like a low orgasm, that we're on the right path. So for me, it's the experiences that I have, and I still chase them in the wrong places, like surfing or racing my car or riding my Harley or doing those sorts of things. And those things are fun. They're worldly things, but the real sense for me of when I feel okay is those times where nothing else matters. It's just me and you, or it's me and the tree, or it's me in the bush. And will my book make you enlightened? Fuck no. I'm not going to lie. But this can be a part of your toolkit, maybe, but I couldn't even say a percentage. So, and the same as I say to people in therapy, it's nothing to do with me. It's to do with you and the universe. You carve out, you come and see me once a fortnight or once a month or once a week. You carve out an hour, purely you're setting an intention to go somewhere, purely to be a better human being. And I think for me, this whole movement of this book isn't to make money, right? I don't want to make money off it. It's any money I get from it is going to be printed in to get more books out there, because it came to me fairly quickly. I don't like the word channeled because I don't believe I'm any sort of guru 100%, but I went on a holiday to Bali, and I'm not a very good writer, and it's 136 pages and it came out in 3.5 weeks, but I had a lot of spiritual walks over there. I sat with people. I did Alcoholics Anonymous meetings every single day over there. I was taken away from parenting and doing all the things that I have to do here. You drive cars and deal with traffic, and will I let this person in or won't I? It depends on my mood. Are you getting in front of me or not? That depends on how I feel. It depends on whether my partner's pissed me off, whether you're going to get in front of me in the traffic jam or not. Like that. And that's whether I want to admit it or not. That's the truth. One day I could be driving and I'm not in a rush anywhere, and the idiot that overtakes me because I'm doing 10 Ks under the speed limit because I'm daydreaming and I'm not in a rush, in my mind, they're a fucking idiot for going around me. And then the next day when I'm running late, the person that's doing 10 Ks under the speed limit, which was me the day before, and I'm doing the overtaking, they're the fucking idiot because now I'm late. And I know I'm off on tangent, but this is how I explain it to people. It's not open up your heart chakra and everything's going to be okay. Or in Australia now, most people seem to think that you need to take like substances. You need to go on mushroom journeys or take psilocybin, or you need to go to the Amazon jungle and go and have ayahuasca, or go to a festival and a dance party. And I think some of these things can fast track the experience, but my opinion of it is, I try and explain to people, this is only my opinion, is it's almost like steroids. If me and you decided we wanted to go to the gym and become bigger, like muscly, if you get on the steroids and I don't, and we eat the same and we work out the same, and we have the exact same program, you will get bigger than me quicker. But the minute you stop taking the steroids, because it's only water weight, it's just bullshit, really. The minute you stop taking your steroids, you will shrink back down pretty quickly to where I was doing it naturally. So I'm not for or against. For me, I don't think substances are necessary. But yeah, over in Australia, and that there's this big movement now with like drug-assisted therapy and drug-assisted this. And again, it's another money-making scheme. And I think anybody that's trying to sell you something and tells you they've got the answer is full of shit, because I don't have the answer. I write in here, whatever you do, something spiritual, try and meditate for a minimum of 5 minutes a day, read. There's no excuse these days why we can't saturate our mind with something, whether it's your podcast, whether it's mine, whether it's an audio book. There's no excuse these days why you can't get a chapter of something into you on a daily basis. Just change your mindset.
By the way, the little story you told with the car is, I guess, the same with the monk in your book with the boat. And yeah. I would like to, a little comment on your book. I love your little stories because they're well chosen, and interesting enough, you're telling them more correctly as they're supposed to be told. Because some of these stories are usually, I heard them many times, but they're usually snippet and taken out of the historic context, and you take a great deal of trying to bring him in there. So the book is worth reading for the book, or the book just worth reading for your little quotes here and there. And of course, as an Austrian, I'm happy that there's Jung all over the place. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy. So I just wish some Wilhelm Reich inside, and that would be like, I order 100 copies. All right, so it's just a personal note that I think it's great that you try to take great care with your quotes to make them as original and as historically appropriate because usually people just take ChatGPT and make a shortcut. So that's something I appreciate. But I wanted to, and again, with your steroids, we are back into the bullshit world, right? Because again, it's $1 billion business. It made Arnold Schwarzenegger who he is, selling supplements and stuff. So it's again, turning and turning. It's just, if you do the right thing, you destroy the industry. I was almost thinking if people like you and others would just become president and run the world, and there will be no business left. If we bring people to connect with themselves and bring people on some path of enlightenment, then all the business is gone. Then people don't have any jobs. Maybe they're enlightened, but they have nothing to work. So it's an interesting conundrum. And the more I understand, in a way, if that's the right word, the more it may be working for you individually. Maybe you're happy, but then you don't have a job. Or it's odd. The whole thing is a bit odd to think the world like that. But that's not my question, sorry. One thing where we agree on, and that's another thing that came through me through the podcast. That's the one, I wanted to ask you that actually, but that will be the next question. But for me, it's interesting that you learn something. I said, I've been more than 30 years in the spiritual world. I've been teaching meditation for more than 30 years at centers and everything. And now I'm a year and a half podcasting. It's unbelievable what I have learned through these conversations. And one of the things that came to me in the last couple of years is that on a great value of religion or spiritual group, basically it's not the guru and his nonsense or the books or this or that, but it's exactly what you said. It's finding real connection, finding a community. And I'm absolutely with you that maybe the way out for people from this spiral would be love, would be friendship, would be being a real father, a real mother trying to engage with this, slowing down and being able to have this experience. I agree with you, if that's what you say, that this is one of the most beautiful and natural way of getting out of the spiral. Did I understand you correctly?
Definitely. Love. I mean, there's that sort of saying, which is a big cliche, it's either love or hate, because everything has an opposite. And I think love is, and again, I think we're so limited on the word love. I think we talked about this when we had a quick catch up before we come on here, that in the Eastern world, they have hundreds of words for love. Love for your donkey, love for your partner, love for your father-in-law, love for your mother-in-law, love for your sister. We have one that's love. And we say, most of us, unfortunately, the thing most people love now is money. Connection has been crossed out and money has replaced connection. And that's why great people like Gabor Mate and guys like that talk about the opposite of addiction being connection, not sobriety, and even Carl Jung, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which I'm a member of and I'm a part of, changed my life back when I was 22, when I ended up in a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. The basis of the 12 steps comes out of Carl Jung's simple quotation talking about simplifying it, was spiritum contra spiritus. And you probably know more about that with your language than I do, but from what I understood was a true spiritual experience counteracts the need for a counterfeit. So a bit like this, like a true connection with my partner, and we talked about sex before a little bit. Are you having sex because you want to? No, because you want to be close to your partner, or are you using them as a masturbation device? Are you using them because you want an orgasm, and that's really what you're chasing is the orgasm, and you just want somewhere? And I know this sounds horrible, somewhere to be deposited or somewhere for that to happen that you don't have to do it yourself, or you're actually having sex because you want to be super close to your partner and you want to connect with them. There's many different types of sex. Even in a healthy relationship, there will be the times where it's just for the orgasm because most people are stressed and life's been stressful. But I think carving out that time where it's more sensual and more connected is a big part that we miss these days because of porn. And again, we're going into all these things where people want to change the world. We start with ourselves, right? And I'm somebody who doesn't watch porn. I haven't watched porn since I was very young because I feel, right? I'm a deep feeler. I think we've got thinking function dominant people and we've got feeling function dominant people. And unfortunately, my feeling function is also what drove me to drug and alcohol addiction, more alcohol than drugs, because I felt so much. And it was almost like if there's an equation of intellect over emotion, as soon as I got triggered, all my emotion will go over my intellect and all my thinking went away. But I think where I'm going with this is if we could all start to become a bit more balanced in our feeling and thinking function, that reconnection of love, then I think the world would be such a better place.
I think we're almost back at the banana, feeling and thinking. Some people eat them right away and some people need to talk about them for years. So we're back at the banana. And I'm so sorry, I'm a European. I have to make a joke because you said you have sex for masturbation and sex for love. Don't forget there's a third way, and that's been called being married. I have to make the joke. It's impossible without it. All right, then.
Are you married? Are you married, Philip?
Of course I am. Look at me. I'm miserable and happy at the same time. I think it's the third solution.
The third solution. All right, there we go, people. The third solution. You can finish the podcast now. They've all heard it.
Oh, sorry. This is the European element of this podcast. Has to come in for a second.
One of my best friends is Austrian. Christian Oyer, if you listen, if you're listening to this.
That was the offer to us too. All right, okay. We must wrap it up, but it's the quick question before the last question, mate, because you'll be inviting me and you were going to confront me with somebody else's question and all of it that already makes me sweating. So I think I'll have to also give you a bit of a provocative question in a way, but very softly. What is the thing that you have learned the most from your own podcast? That's a simple one.
That I know less than what I think I do.
Oh, wow. I know that you're good in answers. You're a therapist. It's no fun playing with you.
No, but I think, well, what I'm saying is I really think that it doesn't matter who the person is. I've had a few of my clients on my podcast and I learn. If I've got an open mind, I can learn from anybody. I can learn from my daughters. I can learn. And that is the truth. I really think that I'm not going on there as the authority figure, as the host. I'm going on there to learn.
Absolutely. So let's wrap it up because we brought people quite along and everybody's just waiting to stop to listen so they can make themselves a banana milkshake. So that everybody's like all the time think I just can't stop. I'm going to put some lovely ice cubes and some milk. So that's what happens at the end of this podcast. We're taking care of your nutrition, people. We care for you. Let's look at maybe the last couple of minutes. Let's take it serious. You say you work, I think, in a clinic. You work as a clinical therapist, and I guess you see all kinds of things. I don't know how severe it is, or if it's just, but if you work in a clinic and support, I guess some of these people will be really hurting. And I'd just like to take this emotional question that we've been spinning all day long. I always say working with people who have real issues, real problems, and then people who have less, but they think it's real. And it's all such a mixed bag. And we talked about capitalism, how this whole thing works and so forth. And then you're always saying in your book, Simplify, that seems to be a mantra going through the book, the simple steps. And then we said, but how to start these simple steps? And then you said, you find a mentor in therapy. You've been this person to reflect to. We talked about communities, spiritual communities, and all of it. So with which kind of mindset you go to your job every morning? Is it based on what you've experienced as a child? Or do you come with, I want to make space, I want to be most human for you, or I know the way for theory? So how you start your day in the hospital would be my last question of the day.
Yeah, so I'm self-employed, so I have my own. I choose my own clients. Clients find me, and I start my day really with a check before I leave home with a check into the universe, wanting to be a conduit really for whatever the client needs. Some of them do need theory, and then others just need love and a space to talk and non-judgment. And the funny thing is, even though I've been pretty hard in the book, I think I'm probably the one most non-judgmental person you'll ever meet, because whatever that person needs in that session is hopefully what I give them. And I try and say that every time before somebody comes in. So I think I would say it's mostly love. Like, you use the word love. Having, quantum mechanics says the way we observe something changes it. So the way I observe the person with me, I might be the only person in their world that isn't talking to them while I'm looking at my phone. Or I don't see that with kids, finishing off with your book, which I had a look at. Like, a lot of kids come to me, and just because you know something cognitively doesn't mean anything. That's the problem. And I'm putting a mirror right there, because I can see my daughter's almost 15. I can see a 14-year-old girl as my last client of the day. And I can tell by my conversation with her, I'm just a substitute parent. As all she needs is somebody to listen to her and listen to what she wants to talk about, even if they're not interested, and just pay attention to her and not pick up their phone. And then guess what happens? I jump in the car, and if I'm not conscious, if I don't bring some of that home with me, if it's just a job, and I've been known to do it more than once, worry about that, and caught myself. And then what happens when I get home? And what do I do to my 14-year-old daughter? I'm on the phone, I'm checking my emails, so already I'm disconnected. Even though I've known the other girl that I'd seen less than 20 minutes ago, as all she needed was a present parent. And then I walk in the door and then I say, your shoes are out the front, darling. Your bag's in the hallway. Why haven't you unpacked your lunchbox? Have you got any homework? Clothes are still on the floor. You didn't pick the bath mat up while I'm on my phone. And then straight away, I'm not practicing what I preach. So I guess I know you asked me simply, what do I do at work? But what I'm saying is, I read a book and I really did some study on, I need to make my partner and my kid and even my dog the last clients of my days as a therapist. Otherwise, I can sit there and go, oh, wow, as all this girl needs is a parent to sit there and listen to her about video games or Roblox or Minecraft, because most people that see me are a bit weird. And as all that weird to me means, I was a weird kid, and I'm definitely weird. People say to me now, fuck, you're weird. Even in therapy. So she needed me. Her parents wanted her to be a certain way, and she isn't. And I'm giving her that acceptance and that love. And then I walk in the door and I don't give it to my own partner or my own kid. We've got to be careful, right? So what do I take each day? I try and take really whatever's coming out of me. I hope that person needs whatever I'm saying more than what I've learned in a textbook or.
There's this horrible thing that the people in the old days used to really practice compassion in the world before, where people tried to take them too seriously and be more of a service to their family, service to their community. And they have not that kind of ego developed like we do today. And if you look at some older people, especially in the villages, is it Greece or whatever, those old grandmothers, and they're just always there of service they're running around their kids and grandkids. And they never seem to have any wishes. They never seem to have any needs of their own. They're just constantly of service. And strangely enough, they're smiling a lot. And they seem quite content. And you know what's real funny? When they die, whole villages coming, people traveling all around the world just to be there and to say thank you and goodbye. And it's just, I don't know what's going on, but thank you so much for sharing this. And sorry, do you want to reflect on this? We have time.
Yeah. Well, I think what's going on is we've crossed out that service and that spiritual connection. We replaced it with money. I really think that the majority of the world now worships money, and we don't worship anything other than money. So we've almost replaced spirituality and service and connectedness with money. And money is never enough. Like, money is just, even you look at money, right? I suppose if we trace it back far enough, it was almost an exchange of energy, where if I'm working with you and you pay me for my hour, I'm exerting energy, or if I'm working in a factory, I'm exerting energy. And then we've tried to quantify energy. We've tried really, money is a quantification of energy, which is, in my opinion, and I say that to clients. I do a lot of bartering where my cleaner, I'll do a therapy session with her son. She cleans my house. Or, I've got another friend of mine who's a gardener, and I did so much therapy with him. And in the end, I was like, we're more like friends. Why don't you just mow my lawn once a week and I'll do your therapy, and I don't feel right giving you an invoice anymore. So I wouldn't make her, I'm never going to be a multimillionaire, right? Because I have that level of service, and I learned that through AA, and I didn't want to be one of these people that, my scale unfortunately slides. If you turn up in a Mercedes, you'll probably pay for the 18-year-old girl who's been homeless, who really has been coming to see me, and she pays half of what you pay. But that's just the way it is, unfortunately. It's just, and I think finishing on that, I think we really have crossed out. It's not, to me, if I wake up tomorrow and I won $5 million, I'd still do what I do, and I probably wouldn't charge for it. Yeah, I would probably say, I want you to make a donation to a charity and still come and book in and have your session. Because for me, I almost get paid. I get to pinch myself. I get paid to do what I love. Like I would do the same thing, maybe a bit less client, but I would do the same thing even if I woke up tomorrow and I didn't need to work. And that was the basis of this, right? How do I reach the world? How do I reach the world with something? Because capitalism doesn't work, and nor does communism, right? But there's somewhere in the middle. The reason communism doesn't work is because there's always someone at the top of the fucking food chain that isn't working on themselves and isn't checking it. The same way most cults, if we look at most cults, they start out with a pretty amazing human being, right? And then they become the top of the food chain and they don't answer to anybody. And the egocentricity or the ego, or whatever you want to call it, grows. And then they become crazy, the last thing I'll say is I go to therapy myself once a week. I go to supervision, which is about my clients, where I talk about any clients I've had dramas with, that's a requirement of my registration. But I choose to go to personal therapy once a week because I don't ever want to get to this point where I think I know. That's scary for me because I've read so many books and seen so many where even Jonestown and David Koresh in Waco and all these crazy places in America where a lot of people have died. If we look back early on, I think these people had a big gift. I think they had a big gift. The egocentricity built and there was no hierarchy and they stopped becoming humble. So for me, trying to remain humble and have humility is probably the biggest key that I really want. And I say to people, do something. A good deed is when you've done something for somebody and nobody else finds out about it. That to me is really doing a good deed, right? Not posting it all over Instagram or posting it on Facebook. Doing a good deed. And imagine if we could wake up today and we could do a good deed for somebody and nobody knew about it, maybe except you and that other person. It could be helping an old lady across the road. It could be, I don't know, buying someone's groceries, buying someone a coffee. It doesn't really matter.
Well, then let's end this wonderful conversation with the call to humbleness. I think we can both get behind that one. And it's for us, and I wish for everyone else, if you want to find a bit more happiness in life, maybe a bit more humbleness be one of the tricks. So thank you so much, Chad, for being here with us today, presenting your book. And it was an interesting conversation. Thank you so very much, Chad.
Thanks, Philip. It was great.